Israel is facing increasing pressure to halt the fighting in Gaza as civilian casualties mount, including those of 3 hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli troops. France's foreign minister has called for an immediate and durable truce in the Gaza war, saying too many civilians are being killed. Earlier, Germany and the UK urged a sustainable ceasefire, but stopped short of saying it should be immediate. US officials have also expressed concern over the human toll of Israel's campaign to destroy Hamas.
The latest victims of the war, they were killed in Israeli airstrikes on Rafah in Gaza's southern part. The area was supposed to be safe for people fleeing the fighting in Gaza City, but they say the reality destroyed their hopes.
They hit every place. They targeted everywhere. They target at night. Children are always scared and they wake up screaming because of the sound of bombing. There are big targets everywhere in Rafah, but unfortunately there is no safety.
One such attack in Rafah killed a French foreign ministry worker and 9 other civilians. Speaking alongside her Israeli counterpart, France's top diplomat said Paris expected answers from Israel. Catherine Colonna called for a lasting truce in Gaza.
I've also come here to reiterate the importance of a new humanitarian truce. We need to return to a durable truce, a truce that will enable us to work towards a humanitarian ceasefire now.
Israel insists that a ceasefire would be a gift for Hamas and says it will continue its military campaign.
We will achieve all of our goals, eliminate Hamas, release the hostages, and promise that Gaza will not once again become a center of terror.
As the Israeli army continues to pound Gaza, the humanitarian situation there is worsening by the day. But messages from Israel suggest that the growing international pressure has been not enough to convince it to at least pause the fighting.
And joining us now from Jerusalem is our correspondent, Ibrahim. There are reports of a meeting about a hostage deal between the Mossad chief and the Qatari Prime Minister. What are you hearing there?
Well, we have heard some reports that the meeting has been positive, and that's pretty much all we know so far. It's not unusual for this kind of negotiation. We remember the first round of negotiations, which took a number of times to even, start in earnest, which culminated in the temporary ceasefire and the hostage for prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. We know that people here in Israel, though, can't wait for this kind of negotiation to restart after the news of 3 hostages having come very close to being rescued, only to then be shot by the Israeli military mistakenly, according to an IDF statement. It's certainly something that people here would welcome, but we've been through this before. There's usually very, very little concrete information about what is actually going on behind the scenes with this kind of deal.
Now, this accidental and tragic shooting of 3 hostages that you mentioned, has it pushed Israel's government to change course and return to the negotiating table with Hamas?
Well, the Israeli government is in a very tricky position right now. They want to appear steadfast, they want to appear strong, and they want to also show the world, which, as was just mentioned, is becoming increasingly impatient with this war, especially because of the mounting civilian death toll. On the other hand, the government cannot ignore the anger on the streets here in Israel, the families of the remaining hostages. And it's here in Israel, it's not, this is not really something that only affects the families of the hostages. It affects the entire society because of the intensity of the October 7th terror attacks. It's something that touches everyone in society. So there's a real sort of public anger at what happened 2 days ago with the 3 hostages, but also anger from before. And so to try and walk that delicate tightrope, if you will, the Prime Minister has on the one hand reiterated what he said before, that this war is an existential war for Israel and that it has to continue at any cost. And no matter what the pressure is, he's obviously, sort of indirectly responding to the mounting international pressure and the fear that Israel might really become even more isolated on the international stage. On the other hand, he has sort of hinted that the door to negotiations has not closed yet. So it really is a delicate balance, Gerhard, and one that the government is now trying to sort of navigate, but it's really, really difficult. The anger here really after 70 days is unlike anything we've seen before.
DW Special Correspondent Aya Ibrahim there. Thank you very much, Aya. A communications blackout continues in the Gaza Strip, with more than 2 million Palestinians virtually cut off from the outside world. Internet and telephone lines went down on Thursday, according to Gazan authorities and communications companies. Aid groups say the outage is hampering their efforts in the territory. The World Health Organization has been able to visit Gaza's badly damaged al-Shifa hospital, and their staff say the hospital is overwhelmed with hundreds of injured patients as new cases arrive every minute. Sean Casey is an emergency medical teams coordinator with the WHO, and he just visited the al-Shifa hospital, and he has now more on what can be done for the injured patients.
Well, yesterday we went to al-Shifa hospital for the first time in about 3 weeks since the ceasefire ended, and we found a hospital that's completely overwhelmed. We saw patients coming in every 30 to 60 seconds on donkey carts, on trolleys, with very serious injuries. The hospital was previously the largest referral hospital in Gaza, with 750 beds in a very busy emergency ward. At the moment, the hospital leadership has indicated that they have only 5 or 6 doctors, 5 or 6 nurses, and about 70 volunteers. So what can be done for them? At the moment, very little, but we hope to change that. So we delivered critical emergency supplies, trauma kits yesterday. We'll be delivering fuel for the hospital to run its generator in the coming days, and we'll be going back again with additional supplies and hopefully some additional human resources to help care for these many, many patients that are overwhelming the very little capacity that remains at Shifa.
Now, can you give us an idea how many of the injured coming into al-Shifa are Hamas operatives and how many are civilians, and do you distinguish between them?
It's impossible for us to say. Our concern is caring for people with injuries and illness. And what I saw yesterday at Shifa was an emergency department that was so full of people injured and ill that there was hardly room to walk. So I saw children, I saw women, I saw young and old, men and women, pregnant women. I saw, unfortunately, children receiving sutures, stitches, without any anesthetic, people wailing out in pain. So it doesn't matter who these people are, they're injured. We, as WHO, our intention, our goal is to support the hospital to be able to care for people, to provide treatment for their injuries and their illness, to ease their suffering. And that's what we've aimed to do with the provision of supplies and what we aim to do in future missions to al-Shifa in the coming days and weeks.
Now, you mentioned that al-Shifa is the most important hospital in Gaza. Is there any other place that sick or injured civilians can go?
There are several hospitals that are functioning right now in Gaza, but not very many. And quite a few are operating at very minimal capacity. In the southern part of Gaza, in Rafah, there are several hospitals, including field hospitals that have been set up for this emergency response. In the middle area, there is some hospital functionality. And in the north, al-Shifa and several other hospitals operating very minimally. So al-Shifa previously had 20 operating theaters. None of them are currently working. They're running dialysis machines 24 hours a day on a backup generator, but they're not able to come close to meeting demand. And what we're seeing in all of the hospitals in Gaza is that they're at 200, 300, even 400% of their normal capacity, and that they're running those numbers, supporting that number of patients with 50% or 25% of their normal personnel. Huge numbers of people here have been displaced. There's a lack of supplies. There's destruction in some health facilities. Many of them are inaccessible due to fighting in the area. So it's extremely challenging from a health service delivery perspective. And the optimal solution to this is peace, is a ceasefire, so that people can move, they can access hospitals safely, so that health workers can get to hospitals to provide care. But at the moment, services are available, but extremely, extremely stretched.
Sean Casey there, the Emergency Medical Teams Coordinator with the World Health Organization. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.